This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so the exercise today is, you have seen, is just about lettering. And it's really kind of detailed into what you can do with lettering. And I watched Janie do this the other day, and really there's a lot of stuff in there that I forgot was there. I didn't know was there. I didn't know what you did with it when you opened it up. And Janie's kind of thought is everybody just pretty much makes their lettering in a straight envelope and doesn't do anything really crazy. So hopefully after today, you will have some ideas to do some different shaping and different fills and all kinds of stuff that you can do with the lettering to make it something different than just a straight out line. Okay, and just a note, anytime you see the writing in green, that's for the Mac people, so don't get yourself all in a tizzy trying to do the stuff in the Mac, stuff in the green if you don't have a Mac. Okay, so I am going to now try to switch so you guys can see my screen. Alrighty. Let's see here. Not that. Not that. Okay. Here we go. Share my screen. Okay. So I got that. All right. And I'm going to go to Premiere 2. So let's go ahead and open up our software. Okay, so can you guys see my screen okay? Somebody shake their head. Yes, no, yes. Okay, I'm assuming you can see it.
It's okay.
You see it, Jude? All right. Yeah. Okay, so, and you know I get going fast, so tell me to slow down when I'm starting to go too fast, because I miss your entertaining feedback at all times. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down here to configure. And let's go ahead and do reset all modules. Reset all modules will be closed and set to the default, and you want that. And say okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So. Okay, so I'm on page 2 already because we're fast. And you're going to go ahead and open up your Premiere Plus. And the first thing we're going to do is change our hoop. So click on change your hoop, and you can make it whatever machine you own. So I'm going to change it to an Epic 2. And then in number 2, we're going to set our hoop to 360 by 260. So 360 by 260. And over here, you want to change your orientation to rotated. And say okay to that. Alrighty. So I'm on number 3, and now we're going to go up here across your top toolbar and select the letter tab. And we're going to look around here a little bit. So if you want to see all the fonts that come with your software, if you click this one right here, that'll give you your drop down into what we call the gallery viewer. You have 100 and some fonts, and they are categorized. So you can look through there and see that we have tons of lovely fonts. Some that we have never used. So the fonts are then subdivided into categories, kind of like by their attributes. So your traditional, if you go to scary, you kind of have stuff that you could use for Halloween. Retro, which we're going to use later. And you can look through there at your leisure, but right now I want you to go to the fun category of fonts. All right. So under fonts, under fun, you have two kinds of athletic block. And by looking here on the screen at the athletic block, the first one, you can see it has 2C beside the word. Okay, that 2C means there's two colors. And the UC means uppercase. So no matter what you type in the letter window, it's going to come up uppercase. So if you want to go over into the help on the fonts, you can look at the details about a particular font. The other thing to remember here is if the font says that it best stitches out in the range of 15 to 100, that means you can pretty much, I won't even do a sample. If I was doing a font using the athletic block with just one color, and I was doing it anywhere in between 15 and 100, I just put it in there and put it on my project. I would not worry about stitching it out. However, if I decided I wanted to use athletic block and that I wanted to change it to a 10, then I would stitch it out because I might have to make some adjustments to the compensation, the density, or what kind of stitch it is, or what the fill is, or the underlay. So remember, the fonts were digitized to stitch out great in between the range given. You want to go bigger or smaller? Do a test before you do the real thing. So that's kind of a lot of information you can get from just a little place on your software. So I want you to go ahead and click on the athletic block you see 15 through 100. And then I'm on page 4 at the top. Click on the letters box and type in the word shape. And I'm going to type it in small letters because it doesn't matter. And it's going to come up all uppercase. We're going to change the size to 35. So that puts me in the range, nothing to worry about. Over here in the layout, looking at the gap is set to 0. Remember, the gap is the spacing between the letters when you go ahead and use them. So the next thing we want to do is right over here. This is the shape area, and I call them envelopes, and Janie calls them envelopes too. You have 35 styles of envelopes, and if you click that button right there, you can see all 35 of the possible shapes that you have that you can put your words in, besides the one we use all the time, the horizontal one. So I want you to select the horizontal one because we always do. And I want you to uncheck reverse. And I want you to uncheck individual if you have either one of those checked. We'll use them later, but we're not going to use them right now. You'll notice we should have color sort checked. And when you've done that, let's go ahead and click apply. All right. So now you have the word shape on your screen. And you can see because we had, I got to move you guys down here a little bit. So you can see because we had the color sort selected, it went ahead and combined them, and now we're only showing one color up here in the design panel. So that was on number 11, and I'm going to page 5. And now we're going to look at what makes up the word. Oh, we didn't really say this, but if I hover over the orange in the design panel, you see it changes my color, so I can tell what's selected. So if I had 5 things in here and I hovered over a color, I could tell where it was going to be because it would change it from that original color, just like it does on a design. All right. So this little guy right here in the middle, he's our center of rotation. So if I get on this circle out here, it's going to rotate right in a circle. If I take this center of rotation and move it over here, for example, and then I do it, I have just changed the center of rotation for the whole word. So I'm going to undo and take it back to where I want it and put it back in the middle. So it just moves the pivot point, and you can use this with the same thing happens with designs as happens with the letters. And Janie threw in a couple shortcut keys here. So if you don't want to go up to undo, you can do Control Z on your Windows or Command Z on your Mac. And I will ask you to go back and forth to the original a couple times. So the next thing we have here is our sizing squares. So if you have green squares on your lettering or super design, that means it's not a stitch file yet. So I can monkey around with it, and it's not going to impact the stitches at all because it's still not a stitch per se. So if I grab a hold of these corners, I can pull them up, I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, I can make it really small. Not that I would, but I could, just by grabbing either one of the letters or either one of these green corners. So that's your sizing. So I want to go back to the original one and now show you that we have even more control than that. All right. So under number 13, if I click on the Shift key and grab these, it's going to move it in proportion and the center stayed locked in place. Even if I go out like this, the center of the design is still at the same place it was. Okay. If I hold the Control key and drag a handle to adjust proportionally while the other corner will stay in place. So if you hold down the Control key, the Control key, the Control and the Shift key, sorry, it'll keep it in proportion on both sides. Just because you can do something on the screen with your lettering doesn't mean you should stitch it out. It might just be for you to look at it on the screen, not necessarily that it's going to stitch out okay. So we covered these, we covered this. If I take this lettering and I put it out here, everything moves to a circle. My squares all turned into circles, and that means it's outside of the hoop. That's your quick, sure way to tell you it's not in the hoop if you can't really see it. So I want you to go ahead and undo back to the original. And if you do too many, it disappears. Okay. So if you want to move it, you got to watch that your cursor turns to the little cross. If it's not the cross, you're not on move. And this becomes really important when you're doing really small designs and you accidentally grab on something like the center of rotation there. So when you're working on something really small and you want to move it, I really recommend that you zoom all the way in so you can make sure you're grabbing what you want to grab and not really changing the design. We just want to move it. So we'll just move him up to the top, out of our way. And I'm going to switch over to page 6. Now we're going to start using some of the things that I think are a little more fun. Does anybody have any questions? Are your eyes glazing over, Diane? No. All right. So I am moving on to number 15. And this time we're going to go up here into the shapes. And we want to find the pennant to the right. And if you hover over them, you will see the little pop-up description. So click on the pendant to the right. All right. We're going to leave all the other settings and we're just going to click on apply. So now we have the pennant and it has kind of the same things that we had before. Just move it down a little bit so you can play with it. And you're going to see that each one. Hello? Question? Okay. So you can individually grab the corners of this pendant. So you could pull them down, you could pull them up, you could pull him out. Whoa, that looks like the Star Wars, the starting banner of the original Star Wars. So you can do all those things, or we can go back to the original in the pendant. It's not quite the original. I think that is. All right. And then likewise, you can do the same thing we did before. I can hold down the control key, and then that's just gonna keep things in proportion. Or I can hold down control and shift, and everything changes, not just the angle I grabbed. All right. Okay. So now we're going to kind of put him up out of the way and into behind that guy. Now, this time, we're going to go ahead and check the individual block or individual letters. And we're going to leave all the settings the same way we did before. And to me, this is where it starts to get confusing about what means what. But I think this example here really helps. It helped me understand it a little bit more. So hopefully it'll help you guys figure it out a little bit more too. As far as groups and restricted group and all that stuff, which can be confusing. So make sure you've selected individual and then go ahead and check apply. All right. So you're going to see, I'm going to get him down here out of the way. So right now, each letter can totally be manipulated separately. And if you're looking, at your screen here, you notice you have the orange handles, but we have a dashed line. So that means you have a temporary group. So it's just temporary, and then you have all the individual ones inside of it. So if we click outside here, the temporary group will disappear. And so now, if I go back in and try to select a letter, it's only going to select them one at a time. So I have two choices here. I can go back and undo it and put them back into that temporary group. Or the other thing I can do, which she doesn't tell you to do it in the exercise, but I want to show you. If I undo that and I select this one, and I really want to make them all back into a group again, I can do Control, and then I start rebuilding the group of those individual letters. So dash lines are temporary. And each one has its own little deal. So if I right click over the box with the new letters, I can select make these guys into a group. So when I made them into a group now, you see that I lost my dashed lines around the word. So under 19, it gives you some more details. This is a formal group. You can deselect the design this time. You can go back and it still kept them in that group. Now, if you right click over the group, we can go ahead and select that you want to restrict it. So now when I restrict it, you can work with the individual group letters, but still keep them in their group. So I can start dragging these guys and have fun with them individually, but you can see in the shadow that they're still part of the same group, no matter what I did to them. So you have those same handles that we talked about earlier. Okay, so I'll give you a minute. You can play around with those, see what you can make. So when you're done playing with that, we can right click, and that's not what I wanted to get. Let's go outside of them. Oh, the group menu on the home tab. Okay, so again, I can take, because I made them into a group, I can take all of them and move them as one. Let me go back over to the home tab and go to ungroup. No, I want to unrestrict the groups. So I accidentally got him out of there. So I did have to go back to the home tab because I couldn't get it on the pop-up there. So this really gives you a lot of stuff that you can do with the letters and the envelopes. Pretty cool. Okay, questions on that? I know it's a lot, but get in there and play around, especially with the group and the restricted group. And I think it really helps just reviewing that page right there, number 7, to help you understand what's happening between them and the fact that you can really manipulate every letter or the whole thing. Okay. So at this point, I could go in here and mess around with the properties. But we have this little thing here called fix as stitches. So once you actually took the stitches and changed them into stitches from what they are right now, remember I still got green handles. When you do fix as stitches, then you can't manipulate those properties anymore. So you want to do all that monkey business that you want to do before you save it into an embroidery. Okay? All right. Okay, so I am now on page number 8, and I want you to go back to the first set of letters we put in up at the top. And remember, if you click on them, you can't get them selected. You can always use your tab key to scroll through the letters or the designs, whatever it is. That's another way to select, especially if you have small pieces or you have pieces overlapping with one another. So inside the hoop, in the work area, we're going to right click. And when we right click, you're going to see the properties as an option. And we're going to go ahead and click on the properties. So we have a whole bunch of information right here in the property tab. So first of all, if we had selected the font and we said, oh heck, I don't like that font anymore, you could go right here. You don't have to retype your words, and you could just pick another font and say okay. And without doing anything else, you can change the font that easy. Okay, and when undo, and I'm back to where I was. The other nice thing, I'm going to right click again and go back to properties again. Oh, wait a minute. I want to make sure I select that. Okay. I'm going to right click, go back to my properties tab. Now let's say I had a typo in here. I'm able to go in here and correct a typo without re-changing out the whole thing. So I could take out a letter, I could add letters, whatever. Unfortunately, there's not a spell check here, so you'll need to rely on someone else for your spelling when you're using this. Okay, you can adjust the size of your lettering here with percentages. So I'm just going to see how high this will let me go and see what it does. Okay. So it's pretty easy if you're trying to fine tune something just to be in here and use this tab right here under properties. Okay. The next thing we have is the gap, which we talked about already. The gap is the distance between the letters. So just for the heck of it, let's change the gap to, let's change them to 5 and see if that's enough to notice the difference. It made a move out a little bit, but not a lot. So that's what gap does. All right, we'll change him back to 0. So the connection type, let's hover over that scissors there. And if you pick that as your connection type, and this comes in handy with like smaller little letters, it'll put a trim in before and after each letter. And as you know, that might not be always a really good thing. Sometimes it's better not to put that on, as Judy will tell you, and as if you look at the back of stuff with really tiny letters, having a trim every time is not necessarily a good thing. It just makes big old knots, and it looks awful on the back and sometimes on the front as well. So, be careful when you do that. And then the other thing is a running stitch. So if you're using a really small font, it'll have, and I know you've seen this, the little, like the letters are actually connected, and it actually looks like it sewed a straight stitch down to the next letter. So that's what the connection means to be on the letter tab there. If you don't want your color sort on, and the reason I might not want my color sort on was, let's say that I wanted to make, and I'm going to say okay to this, you don't have to. Now I have access to every single letter, and I could go ahead and change the color so that every letter was a different color if I wanted to entertain myself by doing that. So sometimes you might want to do that, so it's good to know you can do it right here. Okay, I'm going to undo and flicker right back to my properties. All right. So the next thing we could do would be to change one of the shapes. So let's say I picked that horizontal and I don't really like horizontal and I want to switch it to something else. I could switch it to a different type of shape altogether and say, okay, and there I go. I just put them down that way. Again, without any retyping or redoing anything, everything's still set. Kept the same set, shape, proportion, everything. So undo that. Undo one more time. Okay. Right click, go back to my properties. So this question came up in the class when Jeannie was teaching it online. Reverse letters so they read from right to left. Okay, so let's go ahead and check this and see what it actually does, because it's not really mirrored. Okay, so somebody said that if you were typing in Hebrew, you might want to use that so it went the other direction. Does that sound right to anybody? Somebody, that's what they were talking as a reason to do it. I don't know. But you can reverse the letters if that's what you want to do. So we're going to uncheck the reverse. Okay. Okay, and now we're going to check this step. And it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Depends on what you've selected as the shape. So it's not going to do anything in this one. Okay. And line formatting, if you have a couple lines, your alignment, pretty standard stuff right there. And then your spacing. So kind of takes you through all the properties of what you can do in the lettering tab. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. And now I am on number 25. And this time I'm going to right click in the work area. And this time we want to come down and select the pattern fill. So let me see here. Okay, so if I want to change the fill of the stitch I have selected, you can click on that. And you can see that you have 1,000,000. Okay, it's not 1,000,000, it's like 200 and plus options here. So let's say under shape, you wanted to change it to, oh, I don't know, a smiley face. So I could pick pattern number 146 and I could say okay. And now you see I have the smiley face fill in all of my letters. So pretty cute. Let's right click and go back to the pattern fill. And let's say I want them to be on an angle. So let's put them on 30. And say okay to that. And snap, it changed all those letters and my smiley face right on the screen onto the angle, which I think is quite cool. Pretty fun, huh? And there's so many fun fills in there, you know, depending on what you're doing, you can see all kinds of different topics. And I always see stuff I didn't know was here. Let's say we want the letters to look like tree bark. So click on number 168, say okay. So the next time you create letters, I want you to do them not in horizontal and pick some of these funky fills. Lots of stuff in here that you can play with. The other thing you're going to see is over here is your underlay. Now remember, depending on who digitized the font, they kind of prepared that underlay to go with what they told you was the, like say 15 to 100 as the size. So this was all created based on that. And it'll be different on every single font you pick. And sometimes, just like on your machine, some things you can't do, that means they're grayed out. So just like it does on your machine, sometimes some of the lettering in here, you won't have all the options that we just looked at and talked about, depending on what fill you pick, depending what letter you pick, depending what shape you pick. So some of them can't necessarily be edited the way they wanted you to. So let's go ahead and close the pattern fill thing for a second. And I want to go back to the original pattern fill this was, which I can't remember what it was, but let's try. I think it might have been 115. No, it is not 115. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and give it a couple undos so I can get back to my original fill. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who remembers when we only had 3 undos? And we thought that was the greatest thing. What? Oh, hang on a second. Sorry. How does it come apart without stitching the regulators in the table? Okay. All right, they got it. Sorry. I think they're busy selling the sit-down quilter and they don't know how to take it apart because it has the optical readers on it. Sorry. Okay, back to where we were. Sorry. Page 10. I'm on item number 26. So this is pretty neat. Go back to the pattern fill. Okay, so it was number 11. So sometimes you want to see what the underlay is, what it looks like. So this is a great little trick if you want to see if you got a ton of letters underneath your design or a ton of stitches underneath that you may or may not need. So we're going to take the density to 35 and then go ahead and say okay. And when you do that, you can see actually what the underlay is underneath there, under the letters. So depending on what kind of fabric you're doing, you might want to make an adjustment to the underlay. And if you zoom in here, and I can't zoom in because I got you guys covering my zoom. Oh, maybe I can. All right, hang on. Okay, so if I zoom in some more, I can see exactly what's happening in the stitches. So you see the underlay under there? So the reason we took that density all the way up was so you can see what was happening. So depending on the fabric you're going to use might depend on if you want to change that underlay. So just for the heck of it, let's change the underlay to none and say okay. So there you go. You can kind of see what's happening underneath your design without going back through stitch by stitch. It's good information to know this sometime depending on your fabric. So it's an easy way for you to take a look at it. And remember, the density, the higher the number, the farther apart. The smaller the number, the closer they get. So if I take it back down to 2 again, it's dense and I can't see what's happening underneath. And sometimes you see that density, you see the same thing on your machine. If you're messing around with a satin stitch or something, if you want it to be tighter looking, you make it the density number smaller. So then just taking a look down there at the bottom of the page, you guys can read through this on your own. But here's some tips. And this is specifically when you're adjusting your letters outside of the parameters given for the letters. So if it said sew it out between 10 and 20 and you decide you're going to do it on 3, you might need to come into this area and make some adjustments to the density based on what you're doing to the lettering. Especially if you're going outside the range. Down page 11, another solution would be to go to a finer thread. So our typical embroidery thread is 40. Well, now if you hit the shop, you know that we have the 60 weight thread, and we've done a lot of lettering with that 60 weight thread, and you get a lot more clarity in your letters. And Judy has a little stitch out of an example showing the difference between stitching out letters in 40 weight versus the 60 weight. So again, depending on the look you're going for. If you wanted to be thicker, you could crank it up and maybe use a sulky 30 weight so it looked more dense. But again, you might have to make some more adjustments in the case of that. And the underlay. So Judy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you do when you're deciding on how much underlay? What kind of fabric do you choose and what underlay to go with it?
Well, if it's a heavy fabric that has some stretch, then you want some good stabilizer as well as more underlay. If your fabric is lightweight, you want very little underlay so it doesn't distort the fabric.
Okay.
And if you have a medium weight fabric, then you're going to use a medium underlay.
Okay, so those are good explanations about why you might want to do any one of the adjustments. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay. So read through those things there at your leisure. We're going to go down now to, we're going to right click and get, I'm on number 30. we're going to go to the pattern fill again and select a new pattern fill of your choice. And I'm going to pick something else. I don't know what. Let's see here. Let's do spaceships. Okay, and I'm going to adjust the underlay to medium. And the density is going to be 2. And I'm going to go ahead and say okay. All right, and if I want to get down and dirty and see what it's going to look like when I stitch it out, I can go up here to my life view and see what it's going to look like. I probably want to zoom in a little bit. And then, oopsie, I can't see the one I want to see. Okay, but remember, you can go over here and you can, when you start putting it on an angle, you can really see what's going to start. You can see your font. You see the fill in there a little bit more. And mess around and see the perspective of it. So go ahead and cancel that. And the other thing to do is we can watch how the underlay is stitching by going up to our design player and letting it play. Remember, if you click on your design player, you can speed it up. But again, you can see the underlay down there. It's not a ton of underlay when we selected medium in this case. Okay, that's like watching paint dry. And you can keep clicking on this, and the more times you click, the faster it'll stitch out. I wish my machine went like that. Okay, so remember, you got those preview tools to help you out as well. Right click again, go back to the pattern fill. Now the other thing we have under pattern fill that I remember when we got it, it was the coolest thing ever. That's the gradient. So if I come down here beside the density tab and check the gradient, I can now put in markers. I'm going to say add a marker. I'll put a marker in there, add a marker. And what this does is I'm adjusting how much of each particular color I'm having in the design. So let's go ahead and say okay and see what that did. There you can see what the gradient did. Okay, so that's another little fun thing to play with. I did it in one color, but under there you can do it in multicolor or a single color. And you can add or take out markers. Sorry. So that's another fun thing you can play with for hours. If you want more information, don't forget to go to the help screen. So while I'm right here in the properties, I can go to help right from here. And it'll take me right into there. And I can take a look at the gradient fills somewhere in here. Okay, so you can click right from where you were. Okay, back to where I was. Back to where I was. Okay. Don't forget the help is there. Alrighty. So I'm at the bottom of page 12. And I'm going to say okay to that. And now I want to click down to the pendant. Again, using the tab or just clicking your way through. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and have the pendant shape selected, and you're going to right click and select the properties. And we're going to go to the fun category again, and we're going to select the Bell font, the Bell 22-100. And we're going to select Step. And then open up the Shape menu and select Fit to the Straight Line. Fit to the straight line and say OK. All right. So I'm going to grab this whole thing and move it down so I can mess around with it a little bit more. So this line down here with the circle is your baseline. This is your step line. Okay, so I can move those guys up and down using the step line. Okay. If I adjust the baseline, it'll take them all and start rolling them around. So you can get, whoopsie, you can get all kinds of funny things happening by using the baseline there. Or not so funny things. Bring him back around. Oh, oopsie. Okay, let me see if I can get my bottom line back up here. So again, this guy's controlling the angle, so to speak. And this one here is controlling the tilt of each letter. And you can actually turn them all the way around. Okay, so you can play with those at your leisure as well. And we've made it down to the third set of letters. And I got a little problem here, I think, because I don't have the whole group. But we'll pretend I have the whole group. Let me see if I can add them. Oh, I added them in. Okay, so if we right click on this one, we right click on him, open the properties. So all we can adjust now, because he's in the group, is we can only adjust the size by percentages rotate. If we wanted to make some more changes, we'd have to make him back into a restricted group so that we could make adjustments. Or if we ungroup them, then we could mess around with each letter individually. But we could change the size here. Let's just change it to 50. And let's rotate it a little bit to see what that does, and go ahead and say okay. So keeps it all in proportion, rotated the whole group, not just an individual letter. So again, we got less opportunities for adjustment because we had selected the individual letters. That makes sense. Okay, so the next section is going to be talking about handles and how to use that little, we're going to talk about how to use this little guy right here in the next area. You guys want to take a break for a minute, or you want to keep going? Okay.
I'm good. Just keep going.
Keep going, okay. So we want to go ahead and get a new window. And you want to say new window. If you say just new, it's going to ask you if you want to save your changes, which I know you're all going to stitch these beautiful things out that you created today. So you want to save them. Oh, no, just kidding. Just a reminder, just because you can do it on the screen doesn't make it going to stitch out good. I know I said that before, but let me remind you of it again, because we are going to make a mess here in a little bit. All right, So this time we're going to go over to the hoops right here. And this time we are going to go and get the 360 by 260, which is already selected on mine, and say okay. And we're going to go to the letter tab again. And I'm on page 15 at the top. And now we're going to mess around with the handles. So let's go ahead and open the font viewer. And I want you to scroll down or up to modern fonts. Modern fonts. Okay, and under modern fonts, we want to select Bremen. And we want to get the 15 to 60. And we're going to change the size to 35. And we're going to type the word handles in the letter box. And go ahead and check. Let me just make sure here. Check apply. Make sure you don't have individuals selected at this time. So check apply. Sorry. All right. So we talked about all these other things, but now we have this little piece. It looks like a piece of paper to me with that's a little yellow piece of paper here. So I want you to click on him, just a single click, and then you're going to get a bunch of drop downs under there. And the first ones are some of the shape, some of the envelopes. The next section you have as part of that drop down is match the top and bottom lines. And then down under here, the next group of things are constraints, different kinds of constraints. And the last thing was force even distributions. So we're going to kind of step through and see what each one of these functions do just by trying them.
Carol,
So you have it? Yes?
when I click on that, I don't get the same thing you're getting.
Did you right click it up? Don't right click, just go and click on it one time. And don't right click.
Got it. Oh, okay.
Did you get it?
Got it.
All right. Okay. And I have to tell you, I've never used any of this stuff down under here like this before, unless I was in a class with Janie. And I found this to be a really good refresher of what's under there if you ever did use it and how it all kind of works together. So we're going to see really what each one of these things does. So the first one we're going to select is the diamond. And when we select the diamond, snap, it turned that right into a diamond. And it did it to the top and the bottom because the match features was on between the two of them. So now you're just going to click on it one time, not right click, just click on it. And this time down here where it says match the top and bottom lines, if you touch it, that'll unselect it and it'll toggle it off. So it kind of works like a on-off switch. So if we touch it one more time, this time I want you to go down here and click on the bottom line type or hover over the bottom line type. And now you can see all these things that we can do just to the bottom line of this word. So what I want you to do is select curve under there. So when I do that, now the bottom part is in the curve and the top is in the still in the diamond. So I could grab it at this point and it's going to stay into the curve. Same thing, I could grab on the diamond up top and it's going to make it fill back in like that. Or we can go in here and now we're going to click on it again, go to the bottom line type again, and this time we're going to add, oopsie, we're going to add 3 more points to the curve. All right, so now this gives me all kinds of options for adjusting that curve along the bottom. So you can monkey around there and get some really funky things that you may or may not want to stitch out, but you can make all kinds of shapes just by adding some more control points into the line. And when we're doing this, the forced even distribution was on, so that's why these are kind of staying even. They were on, but it was on by default. Okay. So if we click on it again and go down there at the bottom, and if I toggle and take off the forced even distribution, now I can, again, I've got more control on the individual points, and you can see that they're not necessarily staying spaced at the same interval as they were when using the forced distribution. And I had no idea I could do all this in there. The next thing we have is, I'm on number 14 on page 17. We're going to click it again. And this time we're going to do constraint. And we're going to go constraint free. And when we do that one, nothing's constrained by their shape and you can truly make a mess out of everything. Or you can make something cool out of everything. Well, you could make it in the shape of an airplane if you wanted, because you don't have any controls on the shape. Okay? Is it making you seasick yet? Okay, you can't even tell it says handles. I mean, this is where you can really twist stuff and get totally crazy onto a roller coaster ride. We have other kind of constraints. So if I click that again, we have a size constraint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some undos and kind of get him back to some semblance of the word handle. I think it would have been quicker to delete it and bring it back in. Oh, I got to be getting close. All right, there we go. All right, so this time, click on that and select constraint by size. So this time, it's keeping things in proportion when you drag it. It's keeping everything so that I keep that shape. I can't mess around with the shape. All right. Then if I changed it to constraint pendant, I have access it there, and it keeps everything, the center at the same place. I have circles, so we know that I have it out of the hoop. All right, so that's constraint pendant. Let's just see what some of the other ones are. Let's go constraint perspective. So this one, other than just doing it really on some of these, I feel like you just have to do it so you can see what's happening without trying to look at a definition. But there's a definition there on her paper that Janie has printed out of the help section if you want to look at it. But really, you can do some craziness, right? Okay. And Constraint Italic. I thought this one was kind of interesting. If we go Constraint Italic, kind of changes the slant of the lettering all together, right? Okay. So you can make all kinds of fun things by using that. And so now we'll just do one here to wrap it all up, kind of put it all together. So we're going to go ahead and get a new window. File, new window. And this time we're going to change the hoop size to, I want to see something here. I don't think they added the, oh yeah, they did. The 260 by 260, okay. So this time we're going to say, I know we don't have to do this, but I can't think of a reason why we need to do it, but I'm going to do it the way she said. Enter the hoop size, and it should be 260 by 260. And we can't manipulate the orientation if we created our own hoop size. So say okay to that. And now this time, let's go to the letter tab, go to the font viewer. And this time we are going to browse down to the retro category. Or up to the retro, and we're going to select Jingo. 25 to 55, okay. And I want you to type home in all caps into the letter box. And change the size to 40. And in the shape, select circle clockwise. Click your drop down, circle clockwise. Okay. Now this time,
Carol?
over here in the stitch, yes?
I have Jingo on retro, but it's not highlighted. Does that mean I don't have that font on my
Yes,
program? Okay.
there's a fonts that I can't believe we picked one, but there's a few of them
I'll just pick I'll just pick a different one. It's okay.
Pick a different one. How about that? All right. So type home, clockwise. All right, over here in the stitch type. This particular stitch, satin column, is a satin column type of stitch. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to change the pattern to 115. And then go ahead and say okay. And click apply. All right, so now we have them in a circle and it's centered in the hoop. So if I start monkeying around with this, I can change the diameter of the baseline. If you want to keep the letters the same size, you can hold down the control key and make them stay in the circle. Or you can go like this and move them all the way around. Okay, so you got a lot of options there on the circle. So we want it to be big enough that you leave one empty grid at the top. So get it one grid from the top, kind of center the word. And then now we're going to go in and change the shape to a circle counterclockwise and touch apply. So now I have another one. Now we want to come in here. So I have the move cursor, which is the arrow, and then bring it down. So the baseline sits just on the first set of letters. Something like that. Okay. So when they look the way you like them, we're going to go up here into the letter box and delete the letters home. And this time in all caps, we're going to type sweet. And we're going to change our shape to a diamond. And make sure that you don't have the individual selected on this one. So unselect that one. And then go ahead and say apply. Okay. Now we're going to grab that sweet that we just brought in and kind of put him into the middle. And we're going to use the handle menu. So we're going to click on that one time to get the drop down. And we are going to turn off the match top and bottom lines. Then we're going to click on the handle again. The menu. And this time we're going to go change the top curve. And it doesn't say we're working on the top curve, but this half up here is the top curve. So change the top to curve. Now click on that again and put in there that you want to add a point to the curve. Add 1 point to the curve. So now we have 3 points on that top. We're going to click that again, and we're going to go to the bottom line here, and we're going to select the diamond. All right. And now what I want you to do, just for fun, is to shape the sweet into the shape of a heart. And I'm sure no ones will look the same. Right? Okay, so you can play around with that. Get it kind of how you like it. Okay. So what we want to do after you get that the way you like it is we want to put everything into one group. So we want to select everything, so we could do it by going Control A, and then you have everything. And at this point, I'm going to go back to the Home tab and tell it to put it all into one group. Okay. Now we're going to go to the Frame tab, and we're going to click the viewer of the frames, and we want to go down to the classical, and then we want to go to frame number 4, and we're going to set the margin to 2.5, And the word group should be checked. Okay, so over here in the line type, stitch type, sorry, it's showing a satin line. So we're going to click on that. And this time we're going to change the width to 2. Okay. And then say okay to close that. And click apply. And there you have your little plaque about Home Sweet Home. So if you, isn't that cute? And so if I wanted to change some of my letters, I could go over here and change my word sweet to change the color. I could change that to pink. Say okay. And then if we do a save as now, so if I go up here on the top and I do a save as, it's going to keep it as a VP4, which means that you can go back, it's a working file, and you could edit it without starting all over again. So if you want to save that, you can. And if you did reset the all modules, it should be dumping it right into My Designs automatically. And then remember, when you want to actually stitch it out, we're always going to go to export. And you're going to export it in the mode you want. If you don't have an Epic, you're going to have to switch it down to VP3. But you can stitch a VP4 file on your Epic or your Icon or your Epic 2. Okay. And let's see, what's the last thing? If you're set up on your Wi-Fi, you could go to your SewNet and you could send it right from here. So, export. Okay. So there you have it.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Carol, that was great. Thank you.
Okay. There's
Very
a
nice.
lot of stuff in there.
So is there a way to cheat if you want to put something right in the middle of the hoop? Is there, or do you, rather than clicking and dragging, or is there something you can just tell it center?
Yes, we could go over here to the Home tab, and then you could go to, over here you have a alignment tab. And
Oh, center.
you
Oh,
could just
perfect.
go
Okay.
center in the hoop. Okay, what other questions? Anything else?
That's great, Carol. Thank you so much.
Okay, so no more straight lines lettering on your projects, okay? Get creative. This kind of gets me thinking. And the other thing to keep in mind is all those tools you just learned today, if you go into the wizards and use your word art, now you're going to be a lot smarter about manipulating letters and words around if you use the word art, the wizard, and on the word sculpt. That's what I wanted to say, word sculpt. So it'll help you up your game on the word sculpt as well. And you guys have it on the Mac. It's under your assistants. So you have it there as well. So again, you can pick your shape here and then start fiddling around with all the words, and it'll really help you here doing that as well.
Thanks, Carol.
Yes.
All right, that's all.
Thank
That's all I
you.
got for today.
Carol, can I ask?
That was great, Carol. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol.
Can I ask you a question though
Sounds
about
great.
order? I just
Yes,
signed up
question?
for the Epic Techniques class, Carol, and I'm trying to
Yes.
figure out how to order the kit. Can I send you an email? Is that the best way to do it?
Well, yeah, if you tell me, Judy, can you show them your thingy? Judy's going to show you. Yeah, you can send me an email and then we'll get the kits cut and I can mail them to you. We got enough time to mail it to you because we're doing it on the 7th.
Right, okay, because I just saw that you asked by August 1st, but the shop is open so little that it's hard to communicate. So I'll send you an email and then you can ask for my credit card. You can call me back. Is that the best thing?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan. Judy,
Isn't that awesome?
That's really nice.
The apron for the techniques class. Let's see.
Great.
Let's see if that helps.
That's fun.
Got an embroidered medallion on top and then some decorative stitched bands on the bottom.
Nice, nice.
It's really adorable when you see it.
Okay.
I'm trying to see it because I still have the other screen on, but I see it because I looked at it today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I did put a picture on the calendar.
Right, that's where I found it. It's cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, ladies, thank you.
So very
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
great class. Thank you.
Good information, Carol. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
It was a
Hey,
lot
bye,
of
guys.
fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Judy, I have
Bye.
a question for you.
Yes, Diane.
I am working on that Christmas town quilt that you had a class in either a year or two ago. And
Yeah.
I want to put my family's name on it. There's a place that you can put like Pasco family.
Uh-huh.
What font, or did you design that font yourself? It was done with a heavier weight thread.
It was done with a heavier weight thread, and I believe it was a font that I brought in. It was, I think the font name is You're a Toy.
You're a boy. Okay.
If
Problems.
you can call me if you have problems or whatever.
Okay, yeah, I can email you and we can exchange information and figure it out. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm working on things though. I'm completing projects.
Good for
But
you.
wasn't this a perfect class for that?
It was, but yeah, I was fiddling with it yesterday trying to figure out what you did, and so now I have a better idea. So
Well, I was trying to match the font that they had used for theirs, and that was the closest I could find for it.
okay.
Didn't you digitize the whole font, Jude, or no? I was thinking you might have digitized the whole.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I need to
It was almost 2 years ago, so that's okay. You can put that in the back of your brain.
Thank you, Diane.
So you can put other stuff in. I know it's.
There's a whole
Yeah,
lot
but for some reason I was thinking
fell
you
out.
did that, but.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll be seeing
Carol,
you.
one more question,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
So if I'm trying to import a design because I want to add a stop stitch, so I want to stitch the pattern as is, but I want to add a stop stitch in the pattern so I can change colors instead of manually
Yes.
watching it. Is the modify
Yes.
module the best module to use?
Judy, I think the modify is the best module, don't you? The actual modify module.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love, that's my favorite part of the software.
Okay, because I'm trying to, the pattern has it in black and I want to turn it orange for just one small piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Okay.
should be able to use the slider to get, you know, if you slide from both ends, you should be able to get to the piece you want and then insert a color change. Or-
Okay, so I take it from insert a color change. Do I pick the stitch? Because in the pattern, it's all considered all one. So like it stitches for like an hour because of how long it is, but this one piece, I want to change a color of it.
Yeah, you'll have to isolate that with your sliders
Okay.
and then insert a color change command at the very beginning of where you want to change it. And then you'll
Okay.
need to insert another one to get back to your original color at the end of it.
Okay, I'll keep playing. I may have to, if you have instructions, I may have to come beg instructions.
Well, if you, yeah, it's kind of real picky. You have to really blow it way up and look at your stitch points and, you know, play with it a bit.
Okay, maybe I'm not going big enough then, because I thought maybe I was just missing something.
No, it takes some fiddling.
Okay. Thank you. I'll keep playing.
Okay, well,
Okay,
keep
let us
asking.
know if you need help. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions?
No, I'll save those for the next go round.
It keeps me on my toes, man.
Oh, well, you know.
Or you could ask Katie, that'll be entertaining. All righty.
All
Thanks
right.
for coming, you guys.
Thanks, Carol. Have a good one.
Yeah, take care of
You too.
Gerald. Give Gerald some.
Okay, I'm trying.
Yeah, keep him out of trouble.
It's hard.
Keep those pain pills away from him.
He needs them right now.
Well, until it, you know, let him taper off, but don't let him get carried away.
He doesn't even want to take them, you know, but he can't let it get out of control this early on. You know, you gotta stay on it. He's trying to switch already off of them, and he's only taken them like twice.
Did it just
So
cleaned out?
what's that?
Did they just clean it out?
No, they had to do some work.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, so
Well, just
yeah.
hang in there, get a good bottle of wine.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink the wine and watch him.
That's exactly right. Well, that's probably the only way you're going to be able to handle it for a couple days.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
So
it'll be good. It'll be good when it's done. When it's
yeah,
done.
it will be. The other one came out great, so this will be. It needed to get done, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
All
something
right, you guys.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Take care.
again. Bye-bye.
Bye.